What if the person sitting right next to you was a killer? That is the question that the Scream franchise has been asking audiences since 1996. And every single time a new Scream movie drops, there is one moment that every fan is waiting for above everything else. It is not the chase scenes. It is not the blood. It is not even the jump scares. It is that one single moment when the mask comes off. When Ghostface reaches up, grabs that white plastic face, pulls it away, and reveals the human being underneath. The person you trusted. The person you liked. Maybe even the person you loved. That moment of revelation is what separates Scream from every other horror franchise on the planet. And over the course of 7 films, we have gotten some absolutely jaw-dropping unmasking moments, and a few that left us scratching our heads wondering if the writers even tried. So today, we're going to break all of them down. Every single Ghostface reveal in the entire Scream franchise, ranked from the absolute worst all the way up to the greatest of all time. We're going to talk about who worked, who did not, whose motive made sense, whose motive was completely ridiculous, and why some of these reveals have become legendary while others have already been forgotten. Whether you're a die-hard Scream fan who has seen every film a dozen times, or someone who just got into the franchise recently, this video is for you. So grab your popcorn, lock your doors, check your windows, and whatever you do, do not answer the phone. Let's get into it. Before we start ranking, let's take a moment to appreciate just how unique the Scream franchise really is in the world of horror. Most horror movies give you a monster, a supernatural force, or a masked killer who operates almost like a force of nature. Think of Michael Myers in Halloween. He barely speaks, he barely runs, and yet he is terrifying because he feels unstoppable. Think of Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th, a hulking figure in a hockey mask who seems to exist purely to kill. These villains are effective because they are mysterious. You never fully understand them, and that mystery is what makes them scary. Scream took a completely different approach. Creator Kevin Williamson and director Wes Craven looked at the slasher genre and asked a revolutionary question. What if the killer was just a person, not a supernatural entity, not an unstoppable monster, just a regular human being with a grudge, a plan, and a really good costume? That decision completely transformed the horror landscape, because suddenly the fear was not coming from some unknowable force. The fear was coming from the people around you, your friends, your classmates, your family members. And that shift turned Scream into something that no other horror franchise had ever really been before, a whodunit. A mystery wrapped inside a slasher movie. And the reveal at the end of every Scream film is the answer to that mystery. Now, not every answer is a good one. Some of these reveals are absolutely brilliant. Carefully constructed puzzles that reward attentive viewers and deliver emotional gut punches that linger long after the credits roll. Others are messy, underdeveloped, or just flat-out disappointing. And as the franchise has grown across 7 films, the quality of those reveals has varied wildly. So let us break them all down, starting with the weakest and working our way up to the best. Coming in at the very bottom of our ranking is the most recent entry in the franchise, Scream 7. And look, it is never easy to say that the newest film in a beloved series delivered the weakest version of its most important moment. But the Scream fanbase has reached a pretty fair consensus on this one, and honestly, it is hard to argue with them. Let's start with Jessica. On paper, she is a decent suspect. She has enough presence in the film to at least register as someone the audience can consider. She is plausible. You can look back at her scenes and find reasons to think she might be behind a mask. That part of the reveal works, at least a little bit. But then there is Marco. And Marco is where things fall apart completely. Here is the fundamental problem with Marco as a Ghostface reveal. He barely exists in this movie. He has one scene. One. And when the mask comes off and it is his face underneath, the audience reaction is not shock. It is not excitement. It is confusion. People are sitting in the theater thinking, wait, who is that? That is the absolute worst reaction you can have to a Ghostface reveal. The whole point of the unmasking is that it should recontextualize everything you have already seen. You should be able to look back at the film with fresh eyes and say, oh wow, of course it was them. Look at all these clues I missed. You cannot do that with a character who had one scene. There are no clues to recontextualize. There is no journey to look back on. He is essentially a stranger walking up and confessing to crimes you never saw him involved in. But as bad as the surprise of Marco being Ghostface is, the motive is where Scream 7 really loses the plot. The explanation for why all of this happened centers on Jessica being an obsessed Sidney Prescott fan. She is so devoted to Sidney that she orchestrated an entire killing spree just to draw her out of hiding, for inspiration. She wanted Sidney to inspire her. Now look, the Scream franchise has always had a slightly heightened, self-aware quality to it. It knows it is a horror movie, but there has always been an internal logic to the motives, a human core to the reasons why these killers do what they do. What we get in Scream 7 does not have that core. There is no real connection between these killers and Sidney or any of the other survivors. It feels disconnected from the larger story of the franchise. And because of that, the whole reveal lands with a thud instead of a bang. It is not terrible filmmaking. It is just the weakest link in a chain that has produced some truly spectacular moments. And that is why it sits at the bottom of our list. Moving up to number 6 on our list, we have Scream 3 and the reveal of Roman Bridger as Ghostface. Now, Scream 3 is a film that has a complicated legacy with the fan base. It took a lighter, more comedic tone than the first two films. The kills were less brutal, the mystery felt a little less sharp, and many fans felt it was a step down for what came before. But the Ghostface reveal, while flawed, is actually more interesting than people give it credit for. Roman is Sidney's estranged half-brother. He is the son that their mother gave up before she became the woman Sidney knew. He has spent his entire life in the shadows of a family that never acknowledged him, and his motive for drawing Sidney out and putting her through this nightmare is rooted in that deep, festering resentment. He blames Sidney's mother for the life he never got to have. And in a strange way, he blames Sidney too, for being the daughter that got everything while he got nothing. That motive is genuinely compelling. It plays perfectly into the rule of trilogies, the idea that the third chapter of any story should upend what the audience thought they understood about everything that came before. Roman reframes the entire Scream mythology by suggesting that the events of the first film were not random, that there were deeper forces at work, deeper wounds driving the violence. That is a bold storytelling choice, and it mostly works on a conceptual level. The problem is in the execution. Specifically, there is one scene that completely undercuts what should have been a much stronger reveal. Roman fakes his death earlier in the film, a smart move to take himself off the suspect list entirely. The issue is that Gail Weathers, a professional journalist who has covered murders and been around enough crime scenes to know better, checks Roman's pulse and confirms that he is dead. She puts her fingers on his neck, feels nothing, and tells everyone he is gone. And then he comes back. If Gail had not checked, if his death had simply been assumed rather than confirmed by a main character, the reveal of Roman returning would have had genuine impact. Instead, you're sitting there thinking, wait, did Gail just miss a pulse? Did she just make a mistake? It is a small detail, but it chips away at the credibility of the moment. Remove that one scene and Roman's reveal becomes significantly more satisfying. But with it in there, it knocks him down a few pegs and lands him at number SIX. To number 5, we have Scream 2, which gives us a dual reveal. Mickey Altieri and Debbie Loomis, also known as Mrs. Loomis, Billy's mother. And this reveal is interesting because one half of it is genuinely great and the other half is noticeably underdeveloped. Let us start with Mickey, because Mickey had so much potential. When he is introduced at the beginning of the film, he immediately establishes himself as a fascinating character. He is a film geek, just like Randy. He knows his movies, he has strong opinions, and he brings an energy to the screen that makes you want to spend more time with him. He feels like a worthy successor to the kind of intellectually engaged horror fan energy that the first film gave us with Randy and Billy. There's even a great early scene in a cafeteria, one of the most tense and cleverly constructed sequences in the entire franchise, where Mickey is right there in the middle of everything. And then he disappears. For the better part of the second half of the film, Mickey is just gone. He stops being a presence in the story. By the time he shows up for the finale as one of the killers, enough time has passed and enough other things have happened that his reveal does not land with the weight it should. You think, all right, Mickey, I kind of forgot about him. For a character with that much early promise, that is a real missed opportunity. Mrs. Loomis, on the other hand, is exactly what a Ghostface reveal should be. She is presented throughout the film as a journalist named Debbie Salt, covering the new murders from the outside. She is present. She is relevant. She has scenes that matter. And when it is revealed that she is actually Billy Loomis's mother, here to avenge her son's death, everything clicks into place. Her motive is clean and emotionally resonant. She is a mother who lost her child and has come back to make Sidney pay for it. It is almost Shakespearean in its simplicity, and it echoes the original Friday the 13th in the best possible way, drawing a direct line between Mrs. Loomis and Mrs. Voorhees. No complicated conspiracy, no convoluted backstory, just a grieving, furious, dangerous mother. That simplicity is the strength of her reveal, and it is what keeps Scream 2 from falling further down the list despite Mickey's underdevelopment. Coming in at number 4 is Scream 6, the second film in Radio Silence's revival of the franchise, and the first Scream movie to take place in New York City. And while the change of setting brought new energy to the series, the reveal here is notable for being the franchise's first triple killer reveal. Ethan, Quinn, and Wayne Bailey are all Ghostface. And together, they make a pretty satisfying team. The core twist, that these three are actually the family of Richie Kirsch, the killer from the previous film, is a clever and organic extension of the franchise's mythology. Scream has always been a franchise about ripple effects. Violence creates more violence. Loss creates grief, and grief, in the wrong hands, creates more killers. The Bailey family is the direct consequence of what Sam, Tara, and their friends did in the 2022 film. They are not random psychopaths. They are people who lost someone and decided that revenge was the only answer. That connecting tissue between films is exactly the kind of thing the Scream franchise does best. The real standout moment of this reveal, though, is Quinn. She was seemingly killed during a brutal attack in an apartment earlier in the film, stabbed multiple times, left for dead. The audience grieved her, and then she walks back into the story, very much alive. And the explanation for how she survived is not a hand wave. It actually makes sense within the logic of the film. Her father, Wayne, is a police officer. He had the access and the authority to pull strings, to falsify records, to make her death official on paper while she recovered somewhere safe. It is the kind of clever plotting that rewards audiences who think about the mechanics of how these things would actually work. Quinn's return is genuinely surprising, and her presence as a sneaky late-game villain adds real excitement to the finale. At number 3, we have the 2022 Scream reboot, a film that had an enormous amount of pressure on it. This was the first Scream film without Wes Craven behind the camera, the first one in over a decade, and the franchise needed to prove that it still had something to say. And the reveal of Amber Freeman and Richie Kirsch as Ghostface delivered in a big way. The motive here is something genuinely new for the franchise. Amber and Richie are toxic fans. Specifically, they are obsessives who believe that the Stab movies, the fictional horror franchise within the Scream universe, have lost their way. They want to create a real-life massacre that will serve as source material for a new Stab film that gets back to basics. It is a biting, sharp piece of commentary on internet fandom culture, on the entitlement of people who think their devotion to something gives them ownership over it, on the way online communities can curdle from enthusiasm into toxicity and even violence. In 2022, that theme landed with real relevance. The reveal is also tied cleverly into the requel trend, the wave of legacy sequels that Hollywood was obsessed with at the time. Films that bring back original characters while also introducing a new generation of heroes. Amber and Richie are making a requel happen in real life. It is meta in the way only Scream can pull off. Now, Richie is admittedly not the biggest surprise. Dewey himself points out that he called it early on, and many audience members probably figured it out before the reveal. But Amber? Amber is spectacular. The moment she reveals herself by suddenly pulling out a gun and shooting Liv point blank in the head is one of the most shocking, kinetic, jaw-dropping moments in the entire franchise. It is so sudden, so unexpected, so brutal that audiences audibly reacted in theaters. And then watching her go full villain in the finale, vicious, unhinged, gleeful in her violence, is a joy to watch. Some fans have questioned whether someone her size could physically pull off everything Ghostface does in the film, particularly killing Dewey. But honestly, when a performance is that committed and a reveal is that well executed, it is easy to go along for the ride. Section 7, Rank 2, Scream 4, Jill and Charlie. And number 2, we have Scream 4, and this is one that has genuinely grown in reputation over the years in a way that very few films get to experience. When it came out in 2011, the reaction was somewhat mixed. People liked it, but the motive for the killers, Sidney's cousin Jill Roberts and her accomplice Charlie Walker, felt a little too outlandish to some viewers. Jill wanted to become famous by surviving a massacre. She wanted to be a celebrity. She wanted the adoration and the social media following and the made-for-TV movie deals that would come from being the sole survivor of a Woodsboro killing spree. In 2011, with YouTube only 6 years old and influencer culture still in its early stages, that felt like a stretch. People were not yet fully living in a world where internet fame was something people would kill for, sometimes literally. But in 2025, watching Scream 4 again is a genuinely eerie experience. Because Jill's motive is not far-fetched anymore. It is practically a headline. The idea that someone would manufacture tragedy for clout, would harm others for followers, would stage their own victimhood for attention. This is the world we live in now. Scream 4 was ahead of its time in a way that has only become more clear as the years have passed. Beyond the motive, the actual mechanics of the reveal are excellent. Charlie's betrayal is one of the series' best individual moments. He has been set up as a horror nerd, as Robbie's partner in running the cinema club, as someone who knows all the rules of horror movies. When Kirby, one of the film's most beloved characters, goes through the terrifying ordeal of answering Charlie's trivia questions to save his life, and succeeds, the audience breathes a sigh of relief. And then Charlie stabs her. He was never in danger. He was Ghostface all along. It is cold and cruel and perfectly executed. And then Jill's reveal takes it even further. The moment she steps out and makes clear that she is the architect of everything, that she has played Sidney, played Charlie, played everyone, is a fantastic villain moment. The double cross, where she turns on Charlie and leaves him to die so she can be the sole survivor, is genuinely shocking. And Emma Roberts commits completely to the role, making Jill one of the most memorable Ghostface in the franchise's history. Time has been very kind to Scream 4. Its reveal deserves every bit of the renewed appreciation it has received. And here we are. Number 1. The gold standard. The one that started it all. Billy Loomis and Stu Macher from the original 1996 Scream are not just the best Ghostface reveal in this franchise, they are one of the greatest villain reveals in the history of horror cinema. Everything about this reveal is perfect. The motive is devastating. Billy Loomis orchestrated the murder of Sidney's mother a year before the events of the film because he blamed her for his own mother leaving the family. Hank Loomis had an affair with Maureen Prescott, and when the affair ended, Billy's mother walked out. And rather than processing that grief, rather than directing his anger at the appropriate people, Billy turned it into an obsession with Sidney. He constructed an entire killing spree around making her suffer for something her mother did. And then he spent a year as her boyfriend, her protector, the person she leaned on, all while being the architect of her trauma. The cruelty of that is staggering. And when it comes out, when Sidney understands what has been done to her and who has done it, it is genuinely heartbreaking. But the reveal works on so many levels beyond just the motive. Stu Macher, played by Matthew Lillard with a kind of feverish, unhinged energy that has never been replicated, is the perfect partner in crime. Where Billy is calculating and controlled, Stu is chaotic and thrilled. He is not doing this for revenge or justice or any kind of ideology. He just loves it. He finds the whole thing hilarious and exciting, and he is completely out of his mind in the best possible way. The contrast between these two killers, one cold and strategic, one wild and impulsive, makes them one of the most dynamic villain duos in any genre. And beyond the story and the characters, the original reveal matters because of what it did for cinema. Before Scream, horror movies had one killer. That was the rule. One monster, one threat, one antagonist. Scream shattered that convention by giving us two. And by hiding Stu behind the mask of a secondary suspect, it created genuine surprise even for savvy horror viewers who thought they had figured it out. The twist that there were two killers working together, that the person you suspected was only half the story, was genuinely revolutionary at the time. Decades later, every Scream sequel has tried to recapture the magic of Billy and Stu. Some have come close. None have topped it. And it is hard to imagine any future installment ever will. The original reveal is the blueprint, the benchmark, and the high-water mark for everything that followed. It is number one, and it is not even close. So there you have it. Every Ghostface reveal in the Scream franchise, ranked from the forgettable all the way up to the all-time classic. The beauty of this franchise is that even at its weakest, it is still trying to do something interesting with the concept of a mystery killer. It is still asking the question, who can you really trust? And as long as that question is interesting, Scream will always have something to offer. But what do you think? Do you agree with this ranking? Do you think Scream 7's reveal deserves to be at the bottom? Is there a part of you that thinks Roman Bridger has been underrated all this time? And most importantly, do you think any future Scream movie will ever be able to top Billy and Stu? Let me know in the comments below. Drop your own ranking, start some arguments, defend your favorite Ghostface. That is what this community is for. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel more than you know. Subscribe if you want more deep dives into the world of horror, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. I will see you in the next one. Stay safe out there. And remember, do not answer the door.